Hey everybody, I'm Joe DeGanzik and this is Smarter Home Life. It has been, I think, a month plus since I've actually been here in the home studio, at least on camera. I've produced the voice narrated CES episodes thus far over the past month or so. And this is the big wrap-up episode. It's going to be a little bit longer. If you're looking at the time on YouTube, it's going to be a little bit longer, kind of like the Q&A episodes. Discussions, the big trends from CES, how they are going to play out in 2017, and if I could take the looking glass, which I actually wrote an article about the upcoming trends and what's going to happen in 2017, so now we'll see if a month or so in, if that's even somewhat accurate, and we'll revisit that at the end of the year, kind of extending that looking glass into the crystal ball into even 2018, if that's even possible. So some discussion points and whatnot, and a little bit more into CES. And you might say, well, you're a little bit late. It's, it's February now. It's been over for a month. It's true, but sometimes it's good to have a little bit of perspective after all the press releases have come out, after you've, if you're someone like me producing CES videos and tech videos on the smarter home. What does all of it mean? And hearing from a few other technology journalists and whatnot, hearing their opinions, not that I necessarily form my opinions based on what other people say, but it's good to know if I'm completely way off base or a little bit in line. And I've got some other things up my sleeve that I want to tell you about as well in terms of what I think is going to be happening. So we'll see about that. Before I get too far in, I'm going to be starting a new campaign and kind of reintroducing this kind of Patreon topic to you, the viewer, over the next couple weeks on a regular basis. We're going to try to start moving the show in a direction to where it is largely, maybe not fully, but largely supported by you, the dedicated, loyal fan and viewer. Patreon is kind of like public radio and public TV. When all the other little ways of earning an income through the online world don't quite add up to keep the lights on, so to speak, I ask you for your kind support. And all it means is that I can make more episodes. I can make them on a more regular basis. I can do this on a full-time basis instead of supporting the channel through other means. And I can make more awesome content. There's so much stuff that was at CES that I want to get shipped here and review products and talk about things. Finish some things I started last year, like the Getting Started with Home Automation series. And there's just so much more coming up, including a really awesome, finally actually doing this, the tour of the smarter home here in the home studio, which no one has fully seen the whole place and how it works in kind of one of those cool, fast, rapid 2-minute, 3-minute videos. So that's coming soon too. So if you would be so kind, if you think that you get something beneficial from these episodes, if you love the show, and I get your emails from viewers every day in comments saying, thanks so much for telling me about how to make all this stuff work. If you would love to see more of this content come out on a regular basis and support Smarter Home Life and support me making all this stuff, please head over to patreon.com/smarterhomelife. Patreon is a platform used by thousands of other creators to help fund what they love to do for what they do for a living. And that's what I would like to do as well. So think about supporting the show and myself, and that would be super fantastic. So enough with that. Let's move on to CES. Most people have never actually been to CES. I was lucky enough to be there as an attendee 10 plus years ago, and in a totally different sort of scenario. But anyways, this year I was able to go kindly due to some help from our friends over at Zmoto, who have helped out the show, and the show was able to get a little bit of promotion through them at their booth. They were kind of stepping into the big smarter home arena from just being a security related company. And anyhow, so I was on a smart home discussion panel. Some good opportunities for me in the show, but of course learning about what's going on with CES and the big trends. So the main thing that I got, one of the main things that I got from CES, everyone has decided to make everything. And I kid you not. Companies that I thought, what are you doing here? Like a company, Uma, who has been known for their VoIP solutions for the home, for, home phone over the internet, like many of their competitors, but they pretty much, from what I understand, do it best. And some good friends of mine use the service and have for years. So I walked into their booth and I said, what are you doing here? Like, what the heck is going on? And they said, well, we're introducing a home monitoring and a few sensors, and they're kind of piggybacking on their existing technology for their own customers. And I don't know that you would go with their solution if you didn't already have their service, but for certain, as a value add for their existing customers who already have basically their hub device, the device that connects your home phones to their internet service for the voice service. It's a good deal. The sensors are about $30 each. The service, I think the monitoring service is about $6. I mentioned this in one of the CES wrap-up videos, about $6 per month if you're an existing Ooma Tello service subscriber. And they've got a door and window security sensor, they've got a flood sensor, and they've got a third sensor, which I can't remember for the life of me, but which is terrible reporting. But it was mentioned in the other videos, so it's somewhere. 3 sensors that they've got that will basically integrate in, and also if something goes wrong with your home, if there's the break-in, or there's a door window sensor that gets tripped and you get an alert, you can, even if you're away from home, they've got a remote 911 service that then you can get access to and call 911 from wherever you are through the service, because it'll go out locally. So I think that's pretty cool. Everyone was making everything. I've already mentioned Zmodo was making their big splash after just doing cameras and security stuff into home automation. So that was part of their, I was part of their kind of big splash with their booth at CES. But, everyone who wants to is making some sort of smart LED lighting. Obviously, we've covered that extensively here on the show. People are making sensors. Companies that weren't even in certain categories like HomeKit devices. Specifically, I had a nice chat with the people from Fibaro. Is it Fibaro or is it Fibaro? Fibaro sounds like some kind of like opera. Figaro, right? Anyways, however you pronounce it, Fibaro has traditionally made their own line and system of Z-Wave products and a home automation system. They launched right before CES a trio of HomeKit devices: a flood sensor, door and window sensor, and a motion sensor that kind of is a little bit of a. They said it looks like a cat's eye when it's like lit up, but could be a little creepy, but cute, a cool thing. And they also launched this game show like button-like device, not HomeKit compatible, too bad actually, because it would be really cool, but it can activate Z-Wave scenes for for their own controllers and other ones. But so they're bringing out devices. Everyone wants to join the fray. It was said, I believe, and I read this and I heard it anecdotally, that about 25% of all of the exhibitors, of all of the booths, all the companies having some presence at CES had some sort of tie-in, even on the most minimal level, to the home automation world. They call it the smart home. I call it the smarter home, because I don't think we're quite there to smart home yet. Even this place, as sort of advanced as it is, changes all the time. I get new devices in, I reprogram them, I adjust things. It's the smarter home. We keep adjusting it, and one day, when you define, because we all define it as we in our own way, the smart home, when you get there, when I get there, we'll say, okay, we're in the smart home. But for now, I think we're in the smarter home. We're on that journey to the truly smart home. One day we'll get there. So everybody's making everything, whether it is a tremendous amount of sensor devices. Some products, they had already come out. Some people are still continuing to show devices that are coming soon. I was over at OneLink, First Alert's booth. They had their HomeKit compatible safe on display. It's still not shipping. It's delayed until, I believe, later this year. They had a device called the EnviroCam still coming later this year. And so a lot of CES is just showing sort of almost hypothetical products. We saw the way out, far out products, such as that solar, sunshade umbrella that would track your kind of position, so it could get you shade throughout the day, and it charges itself and it moves around, and it was really cool to see. It's going to be expensive. The same thing with that laundry folding device, the Foldimate. It's going to be like $800. The home automation world encapsulated so many different areas. And again, some products that had been announced, we had seen light demos of, but actually seeing something like the 7Hugs smart remote, the device that you can kind of just point anywhere, and with their positioning sensors, you program it so it knows ultimately where these devices are when you point it at something, and then it's got the display that changes really quickly. They had this ring around, they had a live TV that showed the interaction of it based on the RF sensors. I don't want to rehash too much of what I've said in some of the other videos, but it was really impressive in terms of what was going on. But there was also this flood, is sort of CES overload, even in just the smart home area, where you're just seeing company A and company B and company C and company D all making the same stuff, packaged and priced and sold a little bit differently. And you're seeing also that companies are going into these multi-function devices. You know, Sengled has famously made light bulb speakers, and then of course companies like Zmoto and other companies are making cameras with lights embedded in them. Same thing at Ring has got their new floodlight camera that's got the camera and the two-way audio, and it looks like a traditional dual floodlight. So you're just seeing everyone can make everything, so everyone is making everything, and we're going to see how all of this really shakes out. I'll talk about that in a second, probably in a few minutes, of how things are going to play out over time. One other thing, and I got to have some good talks with a few of the companies and a couple of their reps, which was the big reason to go to CES, to actually have these conversations in person with the people who can give me answers, and of course they didn't want to give me the full answer. Many of you have said in your comments and emails, I want to get into home automation, this stuff is great, but it's just way too expensive. $60 for a smart bulb, that's just, I can't afford it, it's too much. Granted, of course, Cube, which we should actually be getting there, because I backed it about a year ago, we should be getting their products in, their smart bulb, which is less than $30 each for color changing. But I saw it in person, and they've got a little bit of work to do to come up to par to say like Philips and LifeX. But these products and the smart home products, the home automation devices, smart lighting, smart sensors, smart toilets, smart, just everything. If you saw the other videos, everything was at CES. It is sold as a lifestyle purchase. It is sold as an experience at this point. I don't think any of the companies are banking on that these are must-have products, right? The industry is not at the point where, except for traditional LED light bulbs, which have become a commodity and are commodity pricing, which we're not at CES, because they're not smart in general. You just screw it in and it lights up. Those of it commodity pricing. The rest of it is kind of a lifestyle purchase, and that goes for practically everything. I'm not going to name companies, but I asked a number of them from a wide variety of categories within the smart home, and that's what they all said. So it's not that these devices can't be made for a cheap price, but it is the fact that it is advanced. If you have a smart light bulb, they're saying, well, it does all these things that a regular light bulb doesn't do, and it does, improves your life and allows you to sleep easier because, you've changed the color temperature down to a nice warm, cozy glow at night, and you wake up and you can be alert, and change the color and sync it with your lights and your TV and other smart home systems. The other thing that I want to say, that part of the reason why these devices are priced seemingly astronomically, like iDevices has like their new dimmer switch that's $100. $100 for a dimmer switch, an in-wall dimmer switch. I don't care what it does. That's too expensive. I will go on record saying that, no problem. That's just too expensive. But again, they're selling it as we make a really excellent product. It does more than our competitors. Okay, but the other part to think about is this trend that we've seen over the past 10 to 15 years, let's just say 5 to 10 years, in the general computing world, in the general world of software updates and operating systems, where largely many operating systems, especially on the mobile side, because Microsoft is not exactly giving away Windows for free, although they kind of did some of that with Windows 10. You're now getting hardware, which is largely what these smart home devices are, hardware devices that can be updated. Usually, please don't buy smarter home devices that cannot be updated. Please don't do it. I already covered that on 2 episodes. Security-wise, don't do it, okay? If it can't be updated over the internet or over the air, don't do it. Just don't buy it. Because they can be updated, and because regularly they are frequently updated every few months, you have to think about that from a business perspective. And I've been sort of a small serial entrepreneur for many years, and so I understand both sides of this as a consumer and the business side. They're building in the fact that you're buying a product that will probably last you 5 to 10 years if these products truly are built really well, that they're going to last you a reasonable amount of time. They're going to provide software and firmware updates for this device for the life of the device. That means you're paying for that staff, those resources, and all of those things to exist for that lifetime. And that's all they do. Take a company like a LifeX, or let's just take a LifeX and iDevices that make these smarter home products. They're not selling software, right? They're not selling anything else. They're selling products, and obviously they want you to buy the latest and greatest. But if you buy one product or 2 products today, then minus dogs barking in the background, you're basically financing part of their company and their existence on into the future. So that's how you have to think about it, as well as why these things are so expensive. They're not coming with a support plan. They're not coming with a monitoring service usually. So that's part of it. They're building those prices and all that software update stuff into for many years to come into that price that you pay up front. So that's part of it. Let's move on. HomeKit. Many devices were across the show supporting HomeKit, among other things, right? HomeKit from Apple has been super popular. Obviously, Google Home, which was introduced to retail last fall, the Amazon Echo, the runaway success story. Everybody was saying, we support the Amazon Echo, we support Alexa. I don't want to set off your devices. Everyone. It was across the entire show and the entire category. Probably things that weren't even in the smart home category probably supported those devices. And you will see as time goes forward here in the next few months, we've seen it come out over the past month or so, more announcements to build out that ecosystem of services and devices that work with Google Home, because it has to rapidly catch up with the Amazon Echo platform, and that platform is getting embedded into devices. Not just the fact, because there's the famous announcement a few months ago about integration into Sonos, the speakers, but they're going to work to bring, Google is doing this as well. They're not stupid over there. They're going to bring the Google Assistant. And Amazon's bringing Alexa into devices directly, and doing these integrations, and also supporting it kind of via the cloud as well. So you're going to see, and that kind of dovetails with the fact of those 3 platforms entering the market over the past couple of years and becoming, I'm still not going to call the Echo and the Google Home actual home automation platforms, because they're not. They're assistants. HomeKit is the only one of the 3 that really is a platform, because you can actually do scenes and triggers, and you can actually truly program to a limited extent. But to a reason, for most users, beginners, you can do quite a lot with HomeKit if you're all in on the Apple world. Those 3 organizations, those 3 platforms coming out, have thrown the industry into sort of turmoil in terms of all these different companies have to now not necessarily work with each other, but work with these 3 platforms. So the other part of this whole thing, these trends for 2017 and what was at CES, was of course more protocols, more logos. We saw an announcement from Zigbee right before CES about this thing with ... It almost looked like a musical note you would find on sheet music, 2 dots and a line, and I'm like, was it a smiley face? Was it an emoticon? I don't know. So Zigbee changed their logo from uppercase to lowercase. Who cares? But congrats, Zigbee. ... was announced as a way of, as I understand it, and I thought I understood it, but I asked the representatives there anyways, without going into a deep technical dive, ... is attempting to make Zigbee and other compatible technologies run on potentially incompatible systems. so that they're trying to bridge the gap, so to speak, among these different communication systems in the smart home, so that most likely eventually we'll have less logos and less protocols to worry about, and that everything will just work with each other. Whether that will truly be a success story is going to take some time to pan out, and they're not inventing something that is a new radio chip or a new dedicated hardware protocol. It's another software layer. It's another sort of application layer, as they call it. Zigbee and dot and Thread all run basically on this 802.15.4, which is an IEEE specifications, a radio specification. It's a dedicated spec. It's the same technology. Some of that technology is what things such as Philips Hue lighting systems use. Sylvania also uses it with their Lightify platform, and a number of other products. Actually, quite a few things use Zigbee, but a lot of it's not necessarily consumer oriented. You have, I just mentioned Thread. Thread was, of course, embedded within the Nest world. It was kind of this technology that Nest didn't really talk about at first. We learned about it. That was their way of communicating between Nest devices. Same thing with Weave, which Google introduced, but really it was kind of a Nest thing, and there was 2 versions of it. It's so confusing. All the stuff that comes out of Google and Nest seems to just be confusing until they figure it out one day. So anyhow, Thread, and Weave. Those 3 logos you will start seeing, because I have confirmation from a trusted source who asked not to be informed, actually, or not to be announced. I didn't actually get his name, but he actually was part of the original team who worked for Revolve, which was a really cool multi-radio home automation hub, which was ultimately bought by Nest, and Nest was bought by Google, but he's still there. We had a long chat. So Thread and and Weave are all going to get certification for actual products, and not just some dream program coming soon. So there will be those logos showing up on devices, and so we're going to watch for that and see how that goes. I don't think there's going to be brand new hubs that are going to come out that have to support that. I think the existing radio technology will be able to support those protocols, but you will start seeing announcements. You'll start seeing news bits from us on those topics as those things roll out. It's probably going to be in the next few months. It sounded like it was not really going to happen until probably Q2 of this year. But what I'm kind of getting at is that it's going to get a little bit more challenging and more confusing as we go through 2017 before it gets better. But ultimately, and I think the industry is going to move towards this, consumers are tired of hearing about Zigbee and Z-Wave and because I asked, and I'm embedded in this world, I understand all of this stuff. And I went to each protocol organization and sort of asked them, I said, okay, give me the 60-second, the 30-second elevator speech. Give me the sales pitch. Why I would, as a hardware maker, why would I go with your system, your spec, your radio technology, your communications platform versus the other guys? And I asked all of them, all the major players, that question. And afterward, I just was like, okay. There's small details, and it's largely getting to the point where they all do the same thing. They're all very similar, but there are some small reasons why at least hardware makers, not necessarily consumers, hardware makers would go for one versus the other, whether it's compatibility or global rollouts or having to get additional certifications for RF spectrum in certain countries. But anyhow, one day, hopefully in the next year and a half, consumers are really going to start looking at, I think they already are, they're going to look at platforms such as Siri and HomeKit, the Google Assistant platform with Google Home and Pixel devices, and they're also going to look at things like Alexa and the Amazon Echo, versus worrying about, does this Zigbee thing work with this Z-Wave thing, or this Insteon, or this Lutron, or Weave, or or whatnot, because it's just too much. I make the analogy, if back in the early 2000s, when Bluetooth was coming of age and becoming a thing, what if there had been 5 or 7 Bluetooth-like standards, and all of these devices interoperated weirdly or not at all, based on these weird Bluetooth-like standards that were all called different things and did the same thing, but just kind of were quite different. It would have been so confusing. It would have taken forever for something to come about. But Bluetooth was actually formed, and is still today, by many of the actual device makers themselves and technology partners. And that's what makes up the Bluetooth standard, and it became the standard, and it's what we have today for short-range radio communication between these devices. So one day soon, but not tomorrow, we're going to get down probably to either a few less protocols. Some things will consolidate. That's what it looks like Dot's trying to do to get technologies to interoperate with each other. But ultimately, it's going to get a little bit more confusing before it gets better. But people are going to pick their favorite platform, the Amazon versus Google versus Apple, most likely, because all the companies are racing. They are racing to make sure that they're compatible with everything. So there's a fourth platform for these, artificial intelligence assistants or device helpers, voice automation, whatever, you want to brand it or call it, that could be a big thing. It could be nothing. Some journalists have covered it. No one has really said whether it's going to be a big thing, and it just depends on how they execute on it. And I'm talking about Samsung and, to a certain extent, SmartThings. I was at Samsung's booth. They were not specifically in the smart home section. There's multiple sections of CES. It's just enormous and overwhelming. But anyways, they were in the section where there's companies who have just enormous presences with their displays and their wares. They're exhibiting their wares. 18,000 square feet of it. Samsung, an enormous presence there. There's a directory for their booth. But anyhow, SmartThings visibly and notably missing. Maybe because they had nothing to announce, and that's probably what's going on, because they're probably frantically working to integrate this new purchase that they just got a few months ago. So, of course, SmartThings was bought by Samsung about two and a half years ago at this point, and they've added a few more products and Samsung kind of branded, Samsung SmartThings branded devices to the lineup, in addition to the hub, obviously, and kind of, they've added more integrations, but they've somewhat left it alone, aside from regular updates and additions to the platform. It just hasn't been in the news as much as it used to be. Anyhow, Samsung bought this startup called Viv last year. Viv was founded by the people who originally created Siri and who stayed with Apple for a while and then left. They created Viv to be what Siri and these other smart assistant platforms were supposed to be, and they wanted to basically leapfrog and go way beyond what their capabilities were. And they gave a demo. I'll try to find the link to it and put it in the video description for you, about last April or May, and said that they were going to take the technology and kind of finalize it, put it into smartphones and tablets and everything. And then a few months later, they were bought out by Samsung. Viv is great. They really excelled at the contextual understanding and the real world understanding of objects and things and places and people, and understanding the user, and being able to pick up on things minutes later or hours later after you talked about something at one point. And they had some limited demos, and then they also showed how it worked kind of on the back end. Very impressive stuff, and you can kind of go through all of that. Samsung bought it, and then had announced, bought it I think in the summertime, announced last fall they were introducing this new, their own voice assistant platform called Bixby. Whether that's going to be the real name of it or not, who knows. It would be in their smartphones and tablets sometime in 2017. Samsung generally makes announcements sometimes at Mobile World Congress, which is in about another couple weeks, usually at their own big event, which will be in the end of May. So whether they actually roll this out fully and correctly across their own devices and potentially across the SmartThings platform, and whether they launch a dedicated smart speaker, well, who knows? And I couldn't get really any information out of the people at the Samsung booth in terms of what's really going on with SmartThings. I could see that there was kind of some parts of the SmartThings kind of house logo that seemed to be in the Samsung kind of like the smart hub area with the fridges and whatnot. Because Samsung has had some smart home kind of devices in terms of appliances for a while, but it was SmartThings that gave them access to all this other technology. So they said that, yeah, there's kind of they didn't, of course, want to say anything specific, but there is obviously some sort of effort within Samsung to either merge those platforms or bring the various technologies and abilities of SmartThings and the other smart appliances from Samsung and kind of bridge those platforms and bring those technologies to each other's areas. Whether they're going to bring out a smart speaker, it would be a really good idea, because if you're going to have a smart AI platform, having a smart speaker, sorry Apple, but I think you're going to have to create one. Expecting everyone to walk around with AirPods in your ears all the time to talk to Siri is just not going to happen. It's a great idea, but it's just not going to happen. And wearables and so forth. There's just something to being able to talk to the room and not worrying about where this device is. It's just listening. It's just there. You don't have to think about it. It's just ready to go. And that there is really something about that has resonated with a lot of people, because obviously Amazon Dot and Echo devices are through the roof, and of course the Google Home has been a pretty good success thus far as well. I think the Google Home voice interface is a little bit better than the Amazon Echo interface for the voice side, but Google has to come up to parity with what the services and products that it will do. But whether there will be this fourth platform and whether it will be Bixby or called something else, we will find out in a few months. I wish that Samsung would, when they roll this stuff out, they've got to hit the ground running with all cylinders firing. If they don't, if they wait a year to introduce a smart speaker or to introduce it into SmartThings, I think they lose the game, because Amazon and Google are going to be two dominant players, because their integrations require software and not hardware. Apple is the one who's got the strict hardware requirements for HomeKit, and it's fantastic, but it's been a slow rollout of devices. And now we've really started to see a pretty good ecosystem across all the device categories for what HomeKit can do. But we'll probably wind up with 4 of these platforms within the next 4 or 5 months, if Samsung truly does roll it out and they don't hamstring the Viv team and the Viv project. They could easily just say, well, we want 5% of what you guys have and we'll worry about the rest of it later. I certainly hope they don't do it, because it'll really, I think, curtail what their efforts could be for growth, because there's a tremendous amount of people who love their Samsung devices. And the other thing would be, if they roll out this project, if they roll out Bixby, if they roll out an assistant platform with a speaker, it's going to have to connect to all the other devices. It can't just be a Samsung only game. So I hope they do it right, and it'll be more competition. It'll probably, again, be more confusing, but eventually we'll have some less confusing devices and systems and platforms coming out eventually. I had to cut because it was talking for too long and had to kind of merge recordings, so I'm trying to reword this. I was talking about some Bluetooth as well, in terms of we've started to see some additional devices come out to help on the Bluetooth side. Bluetooth for the smart home is largely used for Bluetooth only devices in sensors, water leak sensors and door and window sensors and whatnot. But Bluetooth is mostly thought of as a technology that's slow to connect, and you got to change the batteries, and if it's too far or if it has to go through a wall, it's not going to work well. And Bluetooth 5 was just adopted as the formal specification by the Bluetooth industry group. And so we'll see that roll out during this year. Some devices will get that update over the air with a software update. Some devices will have to be a new hardware platform. But there's also a couple companies that are taking on the challenge of how do you get those Bluetooth devices to connect to the internet, because Bluetooth was never designed to connect directly to the internet or to the cloud. It always has to have some translation layer or device to get it to do more things. The same thing as with HomeKit devices that are Bluetooth only. You have to have an iOS device like a an iPad or an Apple TV to get remote access to those devices when you're not home from your iOS device. And the same goes for other types of Bluetooth sensors and devices that you want to gain access to in your home from outside your home. So, and I forget the name, and it's terrible, but it was in one of the other videos that I produced. There's a couple companies that are doing this. I spoke at length with iLumi, who will be launching shortly, probably Q2 of this year, a Bluetooth to Wi-Fi bridge. And they implied, and I won't say, well, this is exactly what they said and this is what they have to do. They implied that one day it could possibly work for more than just their devices. iLumi makes smart lighting products that are Bluetooth only, which has been a problem because if you want to control your lights in your home or change the schedule and you're not at home, you're out of luck completely. But they built they slowly worked on their platform and their products, and I think this was probably in their roadmap. So if they launch a device that can, they demoed it for me and others at their suite, working with Google Home over IFTTT, and so it works, it's great, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. If they can open it up to make it a universal device, and if it would work for more than just iLumi products, Bluetooth to Wi-Fi, make that bridge happen, that would be fantastic. Another company, not specifically with Bluetooth, but with HomeKit. iLumi didn't specifically say anything about HomeKit, but maybe one day. And obviously, this is the month where we believe we get the HomeKit upgrade for LifeX bulbs and also the Sylvania dedicated HomeKit bulb. But that's just a tangent. In terms of HomeKit getting access to Bluetooth devices, Wi-Fi devices, and Zigbee and Z-Wave devices, there was this announcement about this Mixtile hub that has a HomeKit certified chipset, but the device itself is not necessarily certified by Apple. So whether this will be a miracle solution or not, we're going to have to wait to see when it actually comes out. They said they're shipping in March for, I think it was about $99, which would be a great price point. But again, many things are announced at CES and around CES that never come to light. They never make it to reality, or when they do, they come out and the product is not as great as the manufacturer said it would be. So there's that, and I'm trying to think to make sure that that I covered everything, because I'm having to kind of re-say some of these things because we lost part of this. Bluetooth, we covered prices being too expensive. We covered HomeKit. We covered a lot of different things. Consolidation, there's going to be a little bit of consolidation. This is my crystal ball going into 2018. As we move forward, there's going to be some consolidation naturally that happens. I think the protocols are just going to be less important. Most of the companies are going to recognize and already have that they love their platforms, whether that's Google, Samsung, if that becomes a thing, Amazon, and of course Apple with Siri and HomeKit. The device manufacturers are going to be emphasizing that in their marketing and probably de-emphasizing the protocols. So I don't think we're going to lose protocols and communications standards for the smart home, but I think it's going to be more, you're going to buy products based on what they work with, what platform they work with, versus what technology they kind of run on. And some of the companies that have started up over the past couple years, especially the ones that were funded through Kickstarter and Indiegogo, they will make the jump and make the leap to true full companies with a product portfolio that comes out that is enticing and engaging and consumers want it, and coming up with new products, or they'll go away or they'll be bought. So some things that I have talked about, some companies may not exist in the next year. So that's natural, and I think we'll start to see that because there's a tremendous amount of innovation and products coming up, but there's only so much that the market can support and that you will support, because you'll watch all these videos and go, I can't buy all that, but I'll buy this other thing, and this is from a company I've heard of, and it's, they've been around for a long time, and I like them versus the other guys. So you, as the consumer, will ultimately decide the fate of these companies and the smart home industry. But it is going to be this is most, as I think I said in the beginning, the rest of the computing world is not it's slowing down. We've seen, you know, the rise and, you know, kind of the peak of the smartphone and whatnot, and tablets and wearables didn't quite go where they wanted. But the smart home, the smart connected devices, is the next big thing, and it's going to continue to grow. So I'm excited to be here and to bring smarter home life to you with these continual episodes, not just of product reviews, but things, thoughtful analysis like this. My last thing that I want to talk about, and this was perhaps among the other things that were interesting at the show, this is an innovation that, and I didn't list it as number one because in my top 5, because I wanted to leave that for things that you can go out and buy right now as a consumer, or that you can go buy shortly. This is from a company that several of you have asked me for my opinion on, and I haven't had one because I haven't had much interaction with them. They, like Zmodo, have kind of made the transition from just a security company to more of a smart home automation vendor over the past couple of years. And they announced a new service this year at CES that, despite the name being similar to Skynet, this is really cool, and I hope that other companies can emulate this and adopt this type of system and this level of artificial intelligence, because one or two other people have characterized the smart home similar to what I have, saying it's really not a smart home. Like, we just have these devices that we can remote control, and you can program them and set them up. The Nest has some intelligence where it'll learn your schedule based on you changing the temperature, but even that is not perfect. A lot of people, myself included, turn that off because it just, maybe it doesn't quite work. So Vivint, who is a company, like I said, used to be in security, now they're into the smarter home as well. Vivint introduced Sky. It's not Skynet, but it is an AI platform for your smart home. And with this platform, your home could actually be smart, because instead of having to program all these devices and remote control these devices, if your devices actually learned, or your system actually learned what you do, and if it was thoughtful enough, not creepy, but thoughtful, it would learn your behavior based on what you do. Like, you're turning things on and off, you're leaving the house, you're adjusting the temperature. The system could eventually start suggesting things for you and saying to you, hey, I noticed that you left the house. Based on what you do, based on kind of past activities, we're suggesting that maybe you should do these things because you're leaving the house. You know, turn the temperature up or down, turn the lights off, lock the doors, you know, arm the security system, whatnot. And it moves slowly. I was shown a couple of slides from their presentation, and it moves slowly and thoughtfully through this progression of learning about you, and ultimately moving from kind of telling you things that you should do to the point where it says, hey, I noticed you left the house. I've got these things that you probably should take care of. Would you like me to take care of them for you? To ultimately moving to, it's going to do those things and then tell you, hey, I took care of it. It's done. That's real home automation. And I feel that we have to get there, and I say we as if I represented the entire industry. I think the industry has to get there, but it has to be careful because, again, people worry about privacy. Sky is cloud-based. It's that processing power is not sitting on some hub in your house. It's cloud-based. It's Skynet watching over your house, right? So despite the name, it's fantastic. And how they do, I mean, I'd love to get a demo of it and to actually put it in here or the next place that I may have to move to later this year. But it's a proprietary system. I mean, you can use the Echo with it, you can use Nest and a couple other of the consumer devices, but largely they want you to use their stuff. They want to bring their people in to install it and to get it correctly configured and balanced and, you know, specifically adjusted for your particular home, which makes sense. But I think the first company that cracks this on a consumer level will win the consumer game. Like, hands down, because you can talk to, you know, your voice assistants all you want all day long and say, do this, do that, do this, do that, but they don't learn from you. You can tell the Amazon Echo to turn up and down the temperature all you want on your even just connected thermostat. It's never going to suggest, oh, hey, you do this on a regular basis every day. Would you like me to just take care of that for you? It's not doing that yet. It doesn't mean that Amazon couldn't do that, but Amazon and Google and whatnot would have to become true home automation platforms that can execute a bunch of devices or execute a bunch of commands all at once as a action sequence, instead of relying on, if you want to do that, well, then you've got to have, some other smart home hub. The first platform that does all of those things, including this AI system, which there's more of than what I'm saying, but you get the concept. The first consumer platform that does all of this wins the game, hands down. Will we see it in 2017? Maybe. Maybe not. And I don't know. I'm not saying that saying I can't say anything, because I'm being, I'm being told by people who've told me that I will be, I'll be taken away and I'll disappear from the from the internet if I say anything. I truly don't know. These AI platforms are not simple things to develop or to build, but obviously if a company like Vivint can do it on their own, a company with the resources of, say, a Google, an Amazon, an Apple, or even a Samsung could do that as well. So 2017, it's going to be actually an exciting year. Maybe a little bit more confusing. You're still going to be emailing me with questions. Hey, what does this do? Does this work with that? And does that work with this? Keep them coming. Questions at smarterhomelife.com. I promise to try to get back to you a little bit faster. I'm behind on Q&A episodes. We've got to get those published. There's a lot more coming out. And again, please do think about supporting the show through Patreon. $1 a month from a lot of people will help tremendously and make it so that I can continue making this content, which is what I want to do. I think I've covered all the different topics. We're probably at 45 minutes to an hour at this point. If you're still with me at this point, thank you. This is just the wrap up. This is just a discussion. What truly is going to happen later this year and into 2018 is really anyone's guess, but I do think that we're going to start seeing some true compatibility across devices. Everyone at the show was all about making sure that their devices were going to work with all these different platforms. HomeKit, a little bit more of a challenge because it's hardware, not just a software and a cloud integration. But we're going to see. Apple may have something up its sleeve that no one knows about. Who knows? But Apple and Samsung, to really compete in this AI and this voice craze, definitely going to have to introduce some sort of always-on, smart speaker-like device, like an Echo, like a Google Home, to truly be competitive in that space. And otherwise, we're going to see a lot of cool devices come out. We're going to see some that are flops and some that are great. The majority will probably do what they say they're supposed to do, and things are going to get better as we get through kind of closer to the end of the year. And I will be here, I hope, to tell you all about it. So thanks for watching. I'm Joe DeGanzik. This is Smarter Home Life, the kind of final in the CES 2017 series. And as always, get out there and automate your life to the extent that you want to make it, that you want to make your home a smarter home. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.